Straight from the UK to Stafford, Texas for Pop Culture Power Show. Meet Andrew Wildman. He's an artist who worked on some of pop culture's best-known characters. For decades, he worked for Marvel Comics, illustrating books such as Spider-Man, the X-Men, Venom, Power Rangers, and of course, Transformers.
You've actually done one of my favorite covers of like all time.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's the one where Carnage is just ripping Venom off of Eddie.
Yeah.
It's just such a beautiful cover.
Yeah, and it still gets used. There was a collected Carnage work came out recently that I just randomly got a complimentary copy of arrive in the post. And it's like, oh, there's that cover again, you know. They used it on the front, so yeah, it's good. It sort of keeps you feeling relevant, even though you don't do this stuff anymore.
So, on that cover, what I wanted to ask you was, are there 3 figures on that cover? Are there 3 characters on there? Would you consider?
Well, yeah.
So.
The symbiote,
Yes.
Eddie,
Yes.
and Carnage. Well, maybe 4 then, because there's Cassidy inside.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what made you when you drew that? What made you want to create that as like an actual cover?
Well, to be honest, I don't know. I can't remember because it's a long time ago. But I would imagine that I was given a steer on it. You know, somebody had said what we'd like to see is, you know, Carnage like effectively unmasking Eddie. So I probably would have got something like that, and then it was like, well, okay, what would that look like? So yes, I mean, I just took it from there. But I would have got a note from the editor, or possibly from Larry, I don't know, because he was writing it, but more than likely from the editor. They usually tended to give a little nod.
Who was the editor at the time?
Eric Fine, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Dig him out if he's still around and ask him. If he's just like, I've no idea.
So, in terms of what you're doing now for like your job, is it still like arts related, or are you still like drawing and stuff like that?
Storyboard artist.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For whom?
I do storyboards for animation and for live action, so I tend to kind of, you know, leapfrog onto one and then onto another. So I do. In terms of animation, it's like kid stuff, usually preschool stuff. You know, a lot of the Moonbug shows that are on YouTube, like, which you probably don't watch, but Gecko's Garage and Arpo and just...
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
And some British shows. I've done the Clangers and all sorts of things.
Cool.
And then usually alternate with TV shows or the occasional movie. So I've done TV shows for BBC, ITV, back in the UK, and stuff for Apple and Prime and Stars, you know, all sorts of different things. But I worked, so for the BBC, the first storyboarding I did, the first kind of main storyboarding I did was for Doctor Who. And then that because of the way that the Doctor Who show works, is that they'll get a director in to direct 1 or 2 episodes, you know, constantly different directors. So I got to know a lot of directors by doing a season of Doctor Who, some of which I've now, you know, followed through with them.
Awesome.
One of them, Jamie Payne, who I do a lot of stuff with, I did Luther season 5 with, and then the movie that's just come out on Netflix.
Oh, I just saw that.
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
that was all my.
So that's you. You
me.
constructed that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What like which Doctor Who was it? Which number?
Matt Smith.
Okay.
So pretty much all of his last season.
That's you.
That's me. Yeah.
Dang,
the
that's
Regeneration
awesome.
episode, and I did some of the 50th anniversary episodes.
Oh wow, man! Yeah, like real hallmark moments in those shows. That's great, man. I mean, seriously, like I said, we literally just sat down and watched the Luther like a week and a half ago on Netflix or whatever the hell it's on. You know,
Yeah.
It was so cool. Yeah, yeah, man. That's.
And I was in the scene in Piccadilly Circus, you know, the big scene with the
Yeah.
buses. And I was there as an extra as
Were
well.
you?
Yeah.
I bet that was
I said, I want to
fun.
be an extra in something. And they were like, and that scene took a hell of a lot of boarding, different versions, because originally in the script and in the first pass, well, first 2 passes of boarding that we did, it was going to be in Leicester Square. So we designed all of that and boarded it all out, knew exactly how the action was going to go. And then they suddenly decided that Piccadilly would be a better location if they could get permission, which they did. So then we had to completely sort of adapt all the shots to Piccadilly Circus and then come up with a whole load of new ones.
You earned your paycheck that day.
So that was, yeah, very much so. So that was 8 versions of Piccadilly. So, you know, we'd nailed it by the time I'd done 8 different
Oh my gosh.
board sequences of the whole thing.
Wow.
There were some things were in different places. There were some of the car accidents were very different, but eventually we kind of nailed it. And I worked a lot with Wolfgang Stiegermann, who was the stunt coordinator and second unit director. So I worked with him a lot on, you know, what happened with the cars and all that kind of stuff.
So do you ever cannibalize some of the other stuff for, like, hey, this, we've done this one, but okay, we're going to do this new one. Do you ever take pieces from here and put it over here, or is it just brand new every single time?
In terms of drawing it, it's always new. The director might carry some ideas over.
I see.
But for various reasons, it might be shot from different angles, or might all be completely flipped. You know, it depends on all sorts of things.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I haven't been through that sequence frame by frame, but I found one shot that I'm in, but there's somebody standing in front of me, and I only know it's me because I often wear a hat, like a trilby hat, and you can see the brim of my hat either side of this other person. Yeah.
Well, I'll have to keep an eye out for that next time I watch it.
Yeah, that when that whole sequence first starts and the police vans first come up, there's like a police SWAT team person runs towards camera and lifts up a pair of like night vision binoculars, like that, and then you see what he's looking at, and he's scanning around the statue in Piccadilly Circus, and as you see it, just to the left of the statue, you can see this little cluster of people, and the girl standing in front of me's got very red hair and a camo jacket on, so she's easy to spot. Okay,
well, I'll spot her and then I'll spot you.
Not so much.
There you go. So, got a question about this. Okay. And, you know, all you Brits, you know, this is like a massive thing. You know, for people in the United States, not as much because, you know, we didn't grow up with it. But 2000 AD, what was that for you growing up, and, you know, did you ever work for them?
I did 2 very small jobs for them. They were like, I think one was a 2-page strip and one was a 4-page strip. Dread, both were Dread, I think.
Oh, awesome.
But 2000 AD, I guess that came out in my late teens, maybe mid to late teens. And I didn't read it much. I did buy some copies when I was at art college. I read it a bit then. But those were the only games in town, really, if you were an aspiring comic book artist or writer, you know, around about that time. So you had Marvel UK, and then 2000 AD, which was published by a company called who was it? Fleetway. It was with a big group called Fleetway, which was a newspaper group, and they did loads of magazines. But they did this thing called 2000 AD. Eventually went independent.
Sure.
But it was very different to kind of US style comics. So some Brits definitely gravitated towards that. And then others, I was always a Marvel person, so I kind of was happy working for Marvel UK and gradually chipping away at the possibility of my career until I managed to artistically step over the Atlantic. So.
Right, to the States and hang out with all those folks. So what's a writer that you worked with that was really like a dream come true? You know, did you ever have a writer that you were like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm working with this person?
Not really, no. I mean, let's think of the writer. Most of the writers' work, I didn't grow up with any of it because they weren't that old. I mean, obviously it would have been awesome to work on some Stan Lee stuff, or I can't even remember who used to write a lot of the book. Because I was always a budding artist, so I was only interested in the artist. I didn't take an awful lot of notice of the writers.
I have a question. So there were a lot of artists and writers that worked for X-Men Adventures, right?
Okay.
And did you get to meet a lot of artists and a lot of writers?
No.
Working on that.
No. The first time the few times I came over to the States to go to the Marvel offices, who did I? No, I mean, that was the thing, working so remotely, you know, from a different country, you didn't really get that. I met Larry when I was working on G.I. Joe. I came over one time.
Oh, yeah,
I met
right.
Larry. So that was cool. Ralph Macchio, I think you did.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I did meet Ralph Macchio, and he was a big fan of my work. I didn't really realise it at the time, but there was one particular issue of X-Men Adventures that I'd got the script, I'd done all the pages and all that kind of thing, sent it all in, and then they got back to, I mean, this is in the days of like the fax machine,
Right.
you know, there was no email,
Right.
but they got back in touch with me and they said, they probably phoned and said, there was something in the story that didn't quite work, and that was a scripting thing that they saw once it had all been laid out. There was a kind of a bit that didn't work in the plot. So they said, we're going to need you to do an extra page. We're going to need you to pencil and ink it because we haven't got time to, you know, do it as quickly as you can. And I think I've got a feeling that I even had to get it blown up and fax it over in big chunks so they could put the page together, you know, because they didn't have time to wait for the shipping. Anyway, so I did this page, which ended up with like, I don't know, 8 panels. There was so much information they needed to get it. And I got a message back from Ralph Macchio, and he said, you're one of the best storytellers I've ever worked with in terms of how you compose the shots and the action and all that kind of thing.
It's awesome, man.
That was amazing,
Yeah,
for me,
absolutely.
you know, from somebody like him. So
Cool.
yeah.
Was there anybody that you worked with, like in terms, okay, like say you have a Neil Gaiman, or say you have Grant Morrison, you know, and their scripts, you know, often are pretty heavy with description or whatever, especially Grant Morrison, you know, like, you know,
Yeah.
you know, what did he say, construct free-floating mirror matter or whatever, you know, and all
Right.
this stuff. Did you ever run into any writers that, you know, had that, or did you have a lot of like leeway with the way you constructed the story from the art perspective?
Yeah, well, the thing about working for Marvel is they had the Marvel style
Right.
of writing, you know, the kind of
Right.
plotting thing. So it would be pages 3 to 5, and then there'd be a description of what needed to be portrayed, maybe some suggested dialogue, but nothing nailed down. So you had a lot of, you know, opportunity to kind of play with it, which as a fan of cinema, that was a wonderful thing to do. You weren't just, you know, drawing the characters as such, but you did have the opportunity to, well, you know, if I shoot it from this angle and all that kind of thing, which is, I guess, what made me a natural fit for storyboarding, just kind of being very visual about that.
Right.
But the most interesting writer I did work with was Larry. When I first started working on G.I. Joe, I remember the scripts coming in and just thinking, I have no idea what this means, you know. I can remember the opening page of one of the strips, and it said, it was, I can't remember the character's name, but
What do you look like?
he's like a big black guy, bald, he had like a massive gun.
Yeah, I can't.
I can't remember, like Roadblock or something like
Yeah,
that.
there you go. That's
Is that what it was?
I think it's
Something like
Roadblock. Yeah.
Anyway, he was running, they wanted him to be kind of running towards the reader, you know, and a couple of other characters with him. And the description was, he runs at the camera, and it said something like, bullets flaring at the lens with anamorphic intensity or something like that. It's like, we're like, okay, let's just pick this one apart, you know. And I said, look, I had to get in touch with the editor, and I said, I don't want to get this wrong because Larry clearly knows what he wants.
Right.
And he just said, oh, you know, it's just like tracer bullets. It's fine. Okay, right. Anamorphic intensity. And he said, well, you know, like a widescreen lens, you know, lens flares, whatever.
Gotcha.
So I just kind of did that. So
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Have you heard that they want to revive the X-Men television series? Now they want to continue it. Has anyone, or is there any future talks of possibly a comic book coming out and possibly with you working on another one?
I have no idea whether there's there's likely to be a comic. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Well,
but
because X-Men Adventures followed the 90, I believe it was called the 92, 93 television series, and now the 97 is coming out.
Right.
In I think a few months, possibly, or
Okay.
I'm not sure what the actual release date is, but I know they'll always have like some sort of comic that usually comes with it.
Yeah.
To explain what's going on the television.
Oh right, okay,
series.
yeah. No, I don't know if there is. I mean, not in contact with, you know, that kind of stuff anymore. I certainly wouldn't do it.
Oh.
I'm, you know, so much of my time is taken up working in film and TV, which I really love. I mean, I loved working in comics because, you know, I was just a massive fan of comic books when I was growing up, and what made it even more intense for me in a way, living in the UK, we didn't get the books very often, you know. Occasionally on a spinner rack in the local kind of, you know, news store, there'd be some Marvel comics, and me and my friends would be like, oh my god, you know, and you'd never get consecutive ones.
Right.
So you'd only ever read one and get to the end, you just think, God, I wonder what happened next, and we'd never know. I mean, it's very different now, but
Right.
so I was just obsessed by it because it wasn't that available, I think. And then so to eventually end up drawing comic books was a dream come true. But to a large extent, I feel I'm done with that now. I mean, I do some of my own stuff, but I probably wouldn't work for Marvel or any of those guys again.
Where is it available? Where can we like find it or whatever?
There's a graphic novel which you can get on Amazon called Horizon: A Long Way to Fall.
Okay.
It's quite different to what people know me for in
Okay.
terms of its content.
Like what? Give us a quick plot summation.
It's more, I guess, it's more sort of European in its sensibilities, but in many ways, it's influenced by training I did as a life coach and personal development and that kind of thing. So I wanted to use a lot of that in a graphic novel kind of narrative, in a way that the subtext is there to kind of inspire and help people, even though it's a great adventure on its own. The character, does learn so much about themselves through the story, and then there's a great sort of reveal at the end.
That's awesome. Do you have some with you right now?
I've got a copy of Horizon. Okay. I didn't have the weight allowance to bring a ton of books.
Sure.
So I thought, if I'm going to bring books, it needs to be like Marvel stuff,
Sure.
and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you do have one.
I have one.
What's
Which you're welcome to
what's the price on it?
It's £12 in. So I don't know what it is in.
Okay.
But it's on Amazon
Okay.
US
Cool.
as
Okay.
well.
Cool. Well, I mean, I'd like to buy it from you here if that's possible.
I've only got the one, so I'm just using it as
Okay.
to show people.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
I mean, you're welcome to buy it at the end of the weekend if it's still there.
Sure. I'll come talk to you on Sunday.
Yeah, do. Yeah.
Cool.
And then I'm also doing a 7-part comic called Oxygen, which it's kind of similar themes in a way, but a very different genre. So Horizon is more sort of, how would you describe it? I don't know, a cross between Alice in Wonderland and something else. I don't know, but it's like there's a lot of dream sequence in it. The main protagonist is a 15-year-old girl, just because it's a perfect character to be able to kind of carry a lot of emotion that age. I've got 2 grown-up daughters, so I know what teenagers are like.
Yeah.
So I wanted to write it from that experience as well.
Awesome.
Whereas Oxygen, it's more sci-fi. It's a lone astronaut on a planet. We don't know why he's there. He's got a droid as his only companion, but there's like a designated destination for him to get to. So it's kind of different.
Cool. Well, I'll definitely have to check those out for sure. And I'm so glad you're making comics. That's awesome, and that means a lot because like for instance, Steve Irwin and Kez Wilson, who I'm friends with, they live in Dallas. Kez was doing like the Atom and Power of the Atom and all that stuff in the 80s, and Steve Irwin was doing Deathstroke and Terminator, with the Zek covers or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So he was doing the interior art.
Okay.
And they're no longer working in comics like a lot of comic folks are, but they're working for like a company where they're drawing like products or whatever for the little books, the little instruction manuals or whatever that come with them. But it's cool, and they haven't really done any sort of comic book stuff other than going to shows and drawing stuff while they're there or whatever. But they haven't continued working as artists in comics either with a company or by themselves. So it makes me happy that talented folks like yourself are still digging away and working away at the core love. That's really cool.
Yeah, I just had, with Horizon, I had the idea many years ago, and I just knew that one way or another, I was eventually going to do it and finish it. I mean, it took me like 5-6 years to do it in between times, and then Oxygen the same, and then I want to do another one, which again follows similar kind of themes, but horror based. But,
oh, cool.
Yeah, so there's like emotional fantasy drama, sci-fi, and then horror.
All your favorite genres, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think they carry the most possibility of an interesting narrative that can have, twist points or things that are unnatural or strange, but acceptable within that genre. They work. So, so you can just get some interesting things going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Anything else, Jim?
No, I think I'm very excited to see your future work.
Yeah.
So, what's the newest thing that you may be working on at the moment?
So I'm currently doing some of this YouTube Kids stuff. There's an Apple TV series that I was approached. I was approached by them. I had an email on my phone when the plane landed and turned the phone, what are your rates, what's your availability, all those kind of conversations. So that's a possibility. I don't know that yet.
Gotcha.
And there's a film with Warner Brothers, possibly again, but these things take a long time they go hi and then they go away and then they come back again, and they go away. So those are the two things that I'm waiting for. So at the moment, just carrying on with this little kiddies, Gecko's Garage, and and Oxygen.
All geckos have to have a garage of some sort, I'm sure. All right. Well, I guess probably go ahead and cut it now.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
dude, it was such a pleasure to talk to you and to get some insight into like your work ethic and what you're doing and everything. It's really cool because once again, I don't know how many times I read through that X-Men book and that X-Men Adventures and to like actually like meet you and you be not only meet you but be a friendly warm guy. That's always a plus, man. So
Nice.
and like I said, thank you so much for
pleasure.
coming out here to the States to be with us over here. It really means a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
And again, thank you for that amazing cover that people just love, especially my wife. The reason I'm saying this is because she's probably going to watch this. She wants to. So I know she loves that cover as much as me. So.
I've still got the original of that. So many people try to buy off me.
Yeah, never sell it. Never,
Oh,
never. That is your.
Another one I'll never sell is X-Men Adventures number 6.
Yes.
Oh wow.
The Wolverine Sabretooth one. Yeah, but
Yes.
a lot of people after
A
that as well.
lot of people love that cover.
Yeah. So no, never sell. Like they say, they never sell the property. Never split it up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
No, you're welcome.
Appreciate it, brother.